Oh boy, today is the big day. Today I get to talk to you about Wingspan, a game that's absolutely been taking the internet by storm. I mean, just look at it, it's beautiful. You've got a little dice tower here that you go to the back and you drop the dice through and it pops out all your little food tokens that you're going to need for later in the game. It's got dozens and dozens of cards, all beautifully illustrated with pictures of birds, with actually some really neat little information on it. You've got your little food balls that you can, I could take or leave them, but then you have these wonderful little journals almost, which fold out. And then that's your player board. Oh boy. And to top it all off, you have these little tiny eggs in 5 different colours. I don't know why. It actually has absolutely no bearing on the game whatsoever, but I'm going to use that old joke that everyone's been using all over the internet, that they look good enough to eat. But in my case, it's not a joke. I really want to eat them. But that's enough about how it looks. How does it play? Well, loads of people have already been calling this possibly their game of the year. So how about we get to the table and we see how this actually plays. So in Wingspan, you're going to be playing ornithologists, bird watchers, just people that really like birds, and you're going to be using your board here in order to attract the best birds into your garden. You're going to be doing this by doing such things as taking food from the bird feeder here. Basically, these dice are rolled at the beginning of every single round. Well, not every single round. When the food actually runs out, you re-roll it again, or if there's all food of the same type in there. You take that, you take the token that you need in order to represent that, and you put it on your board. You can also lay eggs, these glorious eggs that I still want to eat, and you get to put them on your board onto birds which have nests and things like that, although they don't need nests in order to lay eggs. You can draw more bird cards from the supply here. There is a tray which displays 3 different birds that are available at the time that you decide to take a card. Either that, or you can draw blind from the top of the deck. So how do your turns work? Let's go and have a look. So, at its heart, Wingspan is an engine building game. You're going to be taking bird cards, you're going to be putting them on your garden, and you're going to be able to take extra actions whenever basically your turn suggests that you can take extra things. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to have these. You're going to have 2, 4, 6, 8 of these cubes to begin with at the beginning of the game. And simply all you do on your turn is you pick whether you want to play a bird card from your hand, whether you want to gain food, whether you want to lay eggs, or whether you want to draw a bird card. So for the purposes of this, let's say I've already built part of my garden up here. I have one of those down there, I have one of those up there, perhaps I have that one just there, and I have nothing in the middle. So on your turn, what you'll do is you'll take one of your yellow cubes and you're going to pop them on the leftmost space without a card in of whichever action you want to take. So let's say I wanted to gain some food from the feeder. I would put my yellow cube there. Currently it displays that I get to take 2 food in one action. So you may think to yourself, I actually want to build out this way really. The further you get up each individual track, the more bonuses you get from each one. As you can see, on some of them you may have things like that, which is you can actually pay a bird card and discard it in order to take an extra dice, meaning you can take 3 pieces of food from the food tray in one turn. Then what happens is it moves along here and then you trigger its action. So in this case, when activated, if this bird is to the right of all other birds in its habitat, move it to another habitat. So in other words, I could move him down to there, say. The cube would then move on to that one. When activated, gain 1 wheat from the supply and cash it on this card. So what that means is, rather than taking your 1 wheat and say putting it in your general supply to be able to actually buy more cards, or should I say to be able to play a bird onto your map. Instead it gets cached on there. That will come into the points game at the end. So then you finally get to there and you get to gain your food from the bird feeder. That kind of like says that that cube is used up, and you keep doing this, gaining eggs perhaps. In this case you would gain 2, or you could pay that 1 food in order to gain a 3rd egg, but you get to put your eggs how you want on the board. Each card will have a section in it that tells you how many eggs it can actually hold. So for example, this one just here says it can lay 3 eggs there. Okay. Finally, you can draw bird cards from the supply, like I said before, either from the 3 cards on the tray or from the deck. When you play a bird card, if you have a bird card in your hand, let's say I wanted to play this guy just here. So it tells me that he can only go into a forest habitat. He does not require any food. So, oh sorry, he requires 2 rats. So I would need 2 rats in order to be able to play this card here. So once you've paid your 2 rats, you can pop him there. But wait, he also requires an egg. So I would have to take that egg off of there in order to be able to put him there. And from now on, when played, draw 2 new bonus cards and keep 1. That brings us nicely to the bonus cards, which you will have handed out at the beginning of the game. So what the bonus cards do is give you stuff for the end of the game. So it could be birds that eat fish. You score for gaining birds that eat fish at the end of the game. Or perhaps you have birds that eat wheat and you need a certain amount in order to score those points at the end of the game. Okay, so what happens at the end of the round? Well, the end of the round comes when you've spent all 8 of your cubes. What happens then is we come over to the bonus board. The bonus board basically happens at the end of every single round. So once everyone is out of cubes, you come to this chart here. There's actually 2 sides to it. If I move those out of the way, you have this one, which is the one I prefer to play with, which is more of a competitive game. You all see who has 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th place, and you gain points depending on what place you all finished in. Whereas on this side, which is a more passive game, you just get an amount of points for every condition that's been met. So the conditions are randomly drawn at the beginning of the game. They are then placed, and in each round you score differently depending on which token is on there. Okay, so how do you keep track of who scored what? You lose one of your cubes. What does that mean? That means in future rounds you're going to have less cubes to play with, so you're going to have to do less turns, and all of a sudden you start realizing I have to use my cubes more efficiently. So let's skip ahead to the end of the game here. Let's say that this is my play state at the end. It's not particularly great, but let's see how it scored anyway. The very first thing you'll be scoring is your birds. So you'll look at the number next to the feather icon on each of these birds here. Let's bring that up here just for the sake of making it more clearer. This one just here. You'll add all of those up and that gives you your first total. You're then going to add that to your bonus cards, any of the end of round goals you managed to take, any eggs, any food on cards, and any tuck cards. You're going to have some birds that are going to allow you to actually take another bird card and just tuck them underneath there. And the more of those you get on certain ones, the more points you're going to score. Okay, so let's have a bit of an example here. So first you look at your birds. You've got 4, 9, 11, 15, 17, 19, 24, 28. So I scored 28 for my birds there. My bonus card that I have over here is birds that have laid eggs. I need at least 7 to 8 in order to score anything off there. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of my 8 birds had laid eggs, so I score a grand total of 3 points. Okay, the next thing is end of round goals. Remember those? That's what we were talking about here. So in other words, in the first round, there it goes. You get 4 points for first place in the first round, 1 point for second place, and it just happens all the way down here. So let's say that I managed to finish first in the first one, scored 4. If I was second in the third one, I'd score 2. Third place in the third round, I would score 2 points. And then third place again in the last round, I would score 3. So, what do all these symbols mean on here? For example, this is birds in your fields. So you'd look on this row here, I have 3 birds in those fields. If I was looking at this one here, it's eggs, basically birds with this type of nest with eggs in it. Again, if I show you here, this is probably not the best example, but just here it would show you what kind of nest they have. For example, this kind of nest, just here. So in terms of these kinds of nests, I actually don't have any on the board, so I would not have done well in that round. Okay, so at that point, once you've scored up the end of round goals, you'll then get points for eggs on cards. So in this case, I had 3 on there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would be another 9 points. Food on cards, I have 1 at the end of the game, so that would score more points. And if I had tuck cards like I'd done down there earlier, you'd get points for that as well, for each bird on there. Usually it gives you an idea of the scoring on the card itself. Okay, so with that, that's kind of it. That's Wingspan. It's a really beautiful looking game. So Wingspan is a beautifully presented game that's easy to teach, works well. It just, like I said, so many people are calling this possibly their game of the year, and I don't like it. Okay, so let me explain myself. So we played a game of this, and one of my friends had a beautifully working system. He was picking things up from all over the place on other people's turns. He was getting so many supplies, and then he was beaten by someone who just had the highest point scoring birds in his garden. Now, thematically, that's great. Whoever has the best birds in their garden wins, right? But as a game, it just doesn't seem to feel right to me. You see, the thing is when you're playing a game, you want to feel clever, and my friend looked like he had this game won. Like I said, he was just taking things left, right and centre. It was a really clever system he had going, but it just wasn't enough. You see, what matters in this game is your birds, and the birds you put in your garden, the high point scoring birds. And sometimes it's not the person who's got the best system that gets those. The person that won the game, he didn't really have a great engine that was ticking over really, really well. He had a couple of abilities where he did the whole tucking the birds underneath the cards, and that was fine. But apart from that, he wasn't doing anything else. He wasn't taking extra food, he wasn't taking extra eggs from anywhere. It just didn't feel like he was a worthy winner. And that's really harsh to say, but okay, so the good birds you get into your garden, the ones that really score high, are worth more points than chasing those end of round goals or chasing your bonus goal. In that game, both me and my friend that came second, we completed our secret goals. We were finishing first and second place on all the different rounds, and yet he still won just because he had the best birds in his garden. And again, it just seems like these mechanics, these extra mechanics, aren't really necessary. You see, here's the problem. You can start off poorly in a game of Wingspan and have a terrible first round. You kind of feel like you've lost the game already by that point, because all of these things that are added as catch-up mechanics, the secret objectives and the end of round bonuses, they're not enough to let you catch up. And this game doesn't let you mess with other players. You basically are just focusing on your own little game in your own little world. And yes, there is a slight element of keeping an eye on what everyone else is doing. so that you can put down cards, so you can take things as they're doing things as well. But it's nowhere near on the same sort of refined level that, say, Roll for the Galaxy has, where reading other players' play state is vital to how well you do. It just seems like a real letdown. And you know what? Let me take a couple of examples here of some of the cards that score high. Literally, the things that make them allow you to put them on the board is you just need 3 items of food in order to put them on. I mean, that's only one more than, say, a 4-point card. So you have some that are 9 points and require just 3 pieces of food, compared to a 4-point that only requires 2. It's only 1 extra turn in order to put a 9-point bird on there. It just seems like the points economy is just off in this game, and it's not something I've really heard anyone else talk about. Maybe it's a problem that I've just found with it. Perhaps I've had a couple of bad games where I didn't get off to the best of starts and knew I'd lost straight from the beginning, because that has happened to me, and it's also happened to a couple of other people that I've known. It just seems like once you're behind in Wingspan, you kind of stay there. I mean, there was one other thing that a few other people who have been critical of Wingspan have mentioned in their reviews, and that's that a lot of these cards also seem to do the same thing. There's not a lot of variance in the cards. A lot of them will have exactly the same abilities on them, and they'll be in quite large numbers. But the thing is you can kind of forgive that a little when you consider just how many cards you actually have. But it does kind of make you think at the same time of, were all these cards necessary? Now, I'm being really condemning of this game here. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to like this game. I know people enjoy games where you kind of have your own little world and you have your own little puzzle there that you can play around with, and you can slot everything together nicely and not worry about having someone ruin all of your plans. Whereas in Wingspan, the most someone's going to interfere with you is, say, take that piece of food that you wanted on your turn. It's such a letdown, because this game, you cannot deny, it is beautifully presented. Beautifully presented. I don't really know another game that's put this level of detail into it. I mean, the information you're getting on these, the cards tell you where in the world they've come from. Of course, it gives you its Wingspan, it's the title of the game, and the pictures are just so wonderfully drawn, and it has to be commended for it. But as a game, I feel like it kind of falls short. But these eggs. Don't do that. It's horrible. It doesn't taste good. Anyway, thank you for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to our channel. If you really enjoyed it, you can head over to www.patreon.com/everybodydice, and you can actually become a patron to us. That would really help us out if you enjoyed this. Other than that, we've got our social media stuff. You probably can find that on our website, www.everybodydice.com. And thank you for watching.